Shadow Files, Episode 1, The First Rule of Power. Have you ever wondered what truly happens behind the walls of the world's most powerful intelligence agencies? Behind names like the CIA, the KGB, MI6, and Mossad. Who recruits the agents? Who watches them? Who studies every fragment of information before a decision is made? And who decides whether an operation lives, fails, or disappears forever? Most people look at a spy and see one person, a shadow moving through the night, a hidden identity, a dangerous mission, a single individual making impossible choices alone. But that is only the surface. In reality, an agent is rarely alone. Behind every spy, there is a system, a machine, a silent network of recruiters, analysts, handlers, technicians, codebreakers, surveillance teams, counterintelligence officers, and decision-makers. Each one has a role, each one sees only part of the truth, and together, they form one of the most secretive machines in human history. But before we enter that machine, we must begin with a simpler question. What is espionage, and who is a spy? In the simplest sense, espionage is the secret collection of information that someone else wants to keep hidden. A spy may live under a false identity, they may spend years building trust. They may pass through ordinary life unnoticed. They may stand beside us in a train station, sit near us in a cafe, or walk past us on a quiet street, and leave no trace at all. But an intelligence agent is more than the image we see in movies. An agent is part of an organized system. They may gather information, they may build a cover identity, they may approach a target, they may manage a source, they may send a signal, or they may perform one small act inside a much larger operation. To understand a spy, we cannot only ask, who are they? We must ask, who created them? Who trained them? Who controls them? Who protects them? And who replaces them if they vanish? Today, we will not begin with car chases, secret weapons, or cinematic gunfire. We begin much earlier, before the CIA, before the KGB, before MI6, before Mossad. Because intelligence was not invented in the 20th century, it began the moment human beings understood one cold truth: to know what your enemy wants to hide is power. And that is where the story of Shadow Files truly begins. Part 1. When information became power. Long before modern intelligence agencies existed, rulers already understood that victory did not come only from swords, armies, or walls. A strong army could capture a city, but the right piece of information could make that city open its gates before the battle even began. A large army could dominate a battlefield, but one exposed secret could destroy a dynasty. The history of intelligence did not begin with black suits, encrypted files, hidden microphones, or satellites in orbit. It began with a much older need: survival. A king needed to know whether a neighboring kingdom was preparing for war. A general needed to know how many soldiers the enemy had, how much food remained, and whether the enemy's commanders were divided. A royal court needed to know who was loyal, who was ambitious, and who was quietly speaking to another faction. From these questions, intelligence was born. In ancient times, the people who gathered intelligence were not always professional spies. They could be merchants, messengers, servants, prisoners, monks, travelers, sailors, or traders bought with money, safety, or power. They did not always appear in history books. They were not always celebrated as heroes. But sometimes, a single sentence from one of them could change the direction of a war. And from that point forward, rulers began to understand something terrifying. The real battlefield was not only on the ground, it was also in the mind. In fear, in greed, in loyalty, and in the secrets people tried hardest to hide. Part 2. Sun Tzu and the Art of Using Spies. More than 2,500 years ago, one of the greatest military thinkers in history placed intelligence at the center of strategy. His name was Sun Tzu. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu dedicated the final chapter to the use of spies. This was not a small detail. It was the conclusion of his entire military philosophy. He understood that no commander could win by courage alone. No ruler could survive by power alone, and no army could march blindly into danger and call it strategy. Sun Tzu's most famous idea is often reduced to one line: know the enemy and know yourself. but the deeper meaning is sharper. That knowledge does not come from spirits. It does not come from guesswork. It does not come only from experience. It comes from people, from human beings placed close enough to the enemy to hear what they say, see what they do, and bring back the truth. In Sun Tzu's world, spies were not merely sneaky individuals. They were strategic instruments. One person could live inside enemy territory for years. One person could pretend to betray one side while secretly serving another. One person could spread false information and lead an enemy into error. One person could bring back a warning that saved an army from walking into a trap. This is why Sun Tzu's ideas still echo through intelligence history today. The weapons have changed. The maps have changed. The battlefield has changed. But the principle remains the same. To win, you must know. And to know, someone must enter the places where light does not reach. Part 3. The Eyes and Ears of Empires. In the ancient world, large empires faced a problem that every empire eventually faces. Power expands faster than trust. A king sitting in a palace could not personally know what was happening in distant provinces. He could not see every rebellion forming. He could not hear every secret negotiation. He could not know whether local officials were loyal, corrupt, or preparing betrayal. So empires needed eyes beyond the throne. They needed people who could travel, observe, report, and warn. In ancient Persia, history remembers the idea of the eyes and ears of the king, a network associated with royal observation and control. Whether every detail has survived perfectly or not, the meaning is clear. A vast empire cannot rule only by force. It must also listen. It must know where discontent is growing, where taxes are being hidden, where borderlands are becoming unstable, where enemies are speaking to one another, and where loyalty is beginning to crack. In Rome, intelligence also became essential. Julius Caesar was not only a military commander. He understood the value of reports, scouts, messengers, maps, and political information. Rome built roads for armies, but roads also carried orders, letters, rumors, reports, and warnings. Wherever power exists, someone will try to hide the truth, and wherever truth is hidden, someone will eventually be paid to find it. Part 4. Sun Bin, when strategy is born from suffering. If Sun Tzu gave the world the theory of intelligence, the story of Sun Bin reveals something more personal and more brutal. In the world of strategy, the winner is not always the stronger man. Sometimes, the winner is the one who makes the enemy believe the wrong thing. Sun Bin lived during China's Warring States period, a time of shifting alliances, fragile loyalties, and endless conflict. According to historical accounts and tradition, Sun Bin once studied military strategy alongside Pang Wan. They shared a teacher. They studied the same art. They were once close. But talent does not always create admiration. Sometimes, it creates fear. Pang Wan rose to power first in the state of Wei, but he feared that if Sun Bin appeared, his own reputation would be overshadowed. So he lured Sun Bin to Wei, accused him falsely, and had him cruelly punished. Pang Wan believed he had destroyed his rival, but he misunderstood the most dangerous thing about Sun Bin. It was not his body, it was his mind. Sun Bin survived. He hid his strength. He allowed his enemy to see a broken man instead of a strategist still calculating in silence. This is a principle that feels strangely close to modern intelligence work. The truth does not always need to be displayed. Sometimes survival depends on making the enemy misread you. Later, Sun Bin escaped to the state of Qi and became an important military strategist. At the Battle of Maling, he used a famous deception. He gradually reduced the number of cooking fires in his camp, making the Wei army believe that Qi soldiers were deserting, weakening, and running away. Pang Wan saw what he wanted to see. He believed what he wanted to believe, and he walked straight into the trap. The lesson was cold and powerful. You do not always need to strike the enemy's body first. Strike their perception. When the enemy sees the wrong picture, they may move exactly where you want them to go. That is intelligence. That is counterintelligence. That is psychological warfare. And more than 2,000 years later, modern intelligence agencies still ask one of the oldest questions in strategy. What does the other side believe? Part 5. The Middle Ages, when secrets traveled with religion, trade, and power. When Rome declined, Europe entered centuries of fragmentation. Kingdoms rose and fell. Lords, churches, merchants, and monarchs competed for influence. But intelligence did not disappear. It changed its clothing. In the medieval world, information often traveled with people who could move across borders. Merchants, pilgrims, monks, diplomats, mercenaries, sailors. They passed through ports, markets, monasteries, castles, and royal courts. They heard about wars, taxes, marriages, disease, rebellion, food prices, and public fear. A merchant could return with more than silk, spices, or silver. He could return with information. A diplomat did more than deliver a letter. He watched the mood of the court. He noticed whether ministers looked confident or afraid. He studied the king's health, the army's readiness, and the whispers behind closed doors. A monk traveling from one region to another might hear things soldiers would never hear. In the Middle Ages, information was not stored in databases. It lived in memory, in sealed letters, in tavern conversations, in rumors, in confessions, in prayers, and in lies. Farther east, the Mongol Empire also understood the terrifying value of intelligence before war. Before attacking a territory, Mongol forces needed more than cavalry strength. They needed roads, water sources, terrain, political divisions, weak walls, unhappy subjects, guides, scouts, prisoners, and defectors. By the time Mongol horsemen appeared, the war had often begun long before. It began with information. Part 6. The Renaissance, when states learned to listen. By the Renaissance, Europe was changing rapidly. City-states, royal courts, and maritime empires competed for trade, influence, and survival. Diplomacy became more complex. Letters crossed borders carrying treaties, plots, political marriages, assassination plans, and military secrets. This was when intelligence began to look more like a state system. Venice became one of the clearest examples. Venice lived by trade, but it also lived by secrecy. A great commercial city needed to know who threatened its sea routes. Who was conspiring inside the state? Who was selling military secrets? Who was leaking technology? Who was speaking to enemies? In Venice, information became a kind of currency. Merchants, diplomats, informants, and hired agents all became part of a larger network of knowledge and control. At the same time, England under Queen Elizabeth I saw one of the most famous intelligence figures in history, Francis Walsingham. Walsingham was not the movie version of a spy. He was not a man running through alleys with a pistol in his hand. He was a network builder. He placed agents in foreign courts, monitored letters, used codes, used messengers, used informants, and built a system designed to detect threats before they reached the Queen. One of the most famous cases was the Babington Plot, a conspiracy connected to the plan to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary, Queen of Scots, on the English throne. Through intercepted and decoded letters, Walsingham's network turned secret words into political evidence. Here, intelligence crossed a new threshold. It was no longer only about battlefield advantage. It became a tool to protect a regime, a throne, a political order. And as letters became the bloodstream of diplomacy, black chambers appeared across Europe. In these secret rooms, diplomatic letters could be opened, copied, decoded, and sealed again as if no one had touched them. The receiver believed the message was private. But somewhere, behind another locked door, its contents had already been read. Intelligence had entered a new age. It was no longer enough to listen to what people said. States began reading what others believed was private. Part 7. The Industrial Age, when secrets ran through wires. When the world entered the Industrial Age, intelligence changed again. Railways moved armies faster. Telegraphs moved information across continents in minutes. Newspapers turned public opinion into political power. Photography, telephones, radio, and modern codes transformed the way secrets could be created, transmitted, intercepted, and understood. Before, to intercept a secret, someone had to open a letter. Now, secrets move through cables, through radio waves, through invisible signals. Intelligence was no longer only human. It was becoming technical. Governments began building more specialized organizations. Military intelligence departments grew. Diplomatic communications became more secure. Cryptography became its own battlefield. An intelligence officer now needed more than courage. They needed language, mathematics, engineering, psychology, pattern recognition, and the ability to find a small signal inside a vast ocean of noise. The First World War accelerated everything. Empires entered the war believing that artillery, industry, and manpower would decide the outcome. But they soon discovered that telegraph cables, code rooms, intercepted messages, and diplomatic secrets could shape the fate of nations. One decoded message could pull a country into war. One accurate report could save a front line. One false assumption could send thousands of men into a pointless attack. After that war, governments understood something they could no longer ignore. In the modern world, failing to read the enemy's information was a form of blindness. But reading it and misunderstanding it could be just as deadly. The intelligence machine was taking shape. Agencies, budgets, files, training, cryptography, counterintelligence, analysis. The age of amateur secrets was ending. The age of professional intelligence had begun. Part 8. World War II, when minds in the shadows changed the war. But modern intelligence reached a new scale during the Second World War. This was a war of tanks, submarines, aircraft, radar, radio, code systems, propaganda, and mass coordination. Every battlefield decision depended on information moving constantly between commanders, governments, ships, bases, and units. And from this war came one of the great symbols of technical intelligence: Enigma. The German military used the Enigma machine to encrypt communications. To them, it seemed almost impossible to break. Settings changed constantly. The number of possible combinations was enormous. But at Bletchley Park, a secret site in Britain, another war was being fought. Not with rifles, not in trenches, not under flags, but in rooms filled with signals, paper, machines, pressure, and silence. Mathematicians, linguists, engineers, machine operators, clerks, radio specialists, and many women whose work remained hidden for decades joined a battle against time. They were not only trying to read enemy messages, they were trying to read them fast enough to matter. Intelligence that arrives too late becomes history. Intelligence that arrives at the right moment can save lives. The information derived from Enigma and other communications became part of Ultra, one of the most important intelligence sources available to the Allies. But the story is powerful not only because of machines. It is powerful because of silence. Many of the people who worked there could not tell their families what they did. They could not claim public credit. They could not explain why their days inside a secret compound were connected to the lives of millions. And intelligence carried another, colder burden. If you know what the enemy will do, can you always act? If you save every target, the enemy may realize the code has been broken. If you do not act, innocent people may die. This is one of the moral tragedies of intelligence. Knowing does not always mean speaking. Knowing does not always mean saving. Sometimes, knowing means carrying a truth that history will judge only much later. Part 9. The Cold War. When the world became a chessboard. The Second World War ended, but peace did not arrive in the way many people hoped. A new confrontation began. Not Nazi Germany against the Allies, but the United States against the Soviet Union. Two superpowers, two ideologies, two alliance systems, and a nuclear fear that covered the planet. This was the age when intelligence moved to the center of global power. The CIA was created in 1947 as the United States reorganized its national security system after the war. Its mission included collecting, evaluating, and distributing intelligence related to national security, as well as participating in covert activity overseas. The KGB was established in 1954 and became one of the most famous intelligence and security services of the Soviet Union. It dealt with foreign intelligence, internal security, political control, and threats the Soviet state considered dangerous. Britain's MI6 continued its foreign intelligence role. Israel's Mossad became known for bold and controversial operations, and intelligence agencies in Eastern Europe, China, France, Germany, and many other countries entered a hidden contest where secrets often mattered more than public weapons. Berlin became one of the great intelligence stages of the 20th century, a divided city, West Berlin on one side, East Berlin on the other. Between them existed tunnels, safe houses, dead drops, surveillance cars, intercepted calls, defectors, double agents, and files powerful enough to shake governments. But the Cold War was not only about men in long coats standing in the rain. It was a war of satellites, spy planes, submarines, radio transmissions, tiny microphones, hidden cameras, stolen documents, short meetings in subway stations, and people who lived two lives, one life for their families, another life for secrets. In this era, the double agent became an obsession. A person could serve one agency while secretly selling information to another. A trusted official could spend years inside a system, only for a file to reveal that they had belonged to the other side all along. So counterintelligence became a permanent hunt, not only for enemies outside the gates, but for betrayal inside the walls. Who was spending unusual amounts of money? Who was meeting strangers? Who had changed habits? Who was angry, afraid, compromised, or blackmailed? Who was living beyond their salary? In intelligence, a small detail can be the first crack in a dam, and many Cold War operations became public only decades later. Some files were declassified, some stories remained disputed, some people died in silence, and some names were never spoken at all. Power during the Cold War was not only measured in nuclear weapons. It was measured in knowing what the other side was thinking, what they feared, what they were preparing, and how far they were willing to go. Part 10. After the Cold War, the shadows did not disappear. When the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union collapsed, many believed the world might become safer. But intelligence did not disappear. It changed its battlefield. Old threats faded. New threats emerged. Terror networks, regional conflicts, cyber operations, organized crime, financial secrecy, disinformation, biological risk, political manipulation, and digital surveillance. Agencies that once focused heavily on state enemies now had to track decentralized networks, hidden money flows, encrypted communications, and threats that did not always wear uniforms or carry flags. Mossad, the CIA, MI6, and other services continued to attract public fascination through books, films, leaks, memoirs, and declassified records. But the lesson behind intelligence is not glamour. It is responsibility. For many countries, intelligence is not simply a tool of policy. It is the first layer of defense. To know early can prevent an attack. To know accurately can save a city. But to misunderstand a signal, or to act wrongly on correct information, can create damage that cannot be undone. This is why the world of intelligence remains both fascinating and dangerous. It is not only action, it is ethics, politics, fear, loyalty, betrayal, and decisions that may be strategically necessary, but morally unbearable. Part 11. Modern intelligence, when the battlefield no longer has a shape. Today, the battlefield is no longer limited to borders, trenches, embassies, or military bases. It exists inside servers, undersea cables, cloud systems, smartphones, social media accounts, financial networks, artificial identities, and the digital traces people leave behind every day. In the past, to follow someone, you needed a person on the street. Today, sometimes all you need is location data. In the past, understanding a person's network took months of observation. Today, it may be reconstructed from calls, emails, images, transactions, travel records, and online behavior. The modern world creates more information than any age before it. But more information does not always mean more truth. That is one of the great paradoxes of 21st century intelligence. An agency may collect billions of signals and still miss the one that matters. A mountain of data can blind people if they do not know what to look for. This is why analysis has become the heart of modern intelligence. Not collection alone. Understanding. A satellite image may show a new facility, but is it military, industrial, civilian? A strange money transfer may suggest covert activity, but is it terrorism financing, smuggling, corruption, or ordinary business? A social media post may be a joke, or recruitment, or propaganda, or a signal hidden in plain sight. In this world, the enemy does not always wear a uniform. An attack does not always explode. An operation does not always cross a visible border. It may be a cyber intrusion, a data theft, a disinformation campaign, a manipulated video, a cloned voice, an algorithm designed to move public emotion, a false online identity built to approach a target. If ancient intelligence was the art of placing a person inside the enemy's world, modern intelligence is also the art of entering systems, networks, data, and minds. Part 12. AI, Data, and the Future of Espionage. Now artificial intelligence is opening another chapter. An algorithm can scan more data than a human could read in a lifetime. It can recognize faces, analyze voices, detect behavioral patterns, identify unusual financial activity, map relationships between people who have never appeared together in public, and find anomalies across enormous systems. But AI also makes intelligence more dangerous. Because if one side uses AI to detect truth, the other side can use AI to manufacture deception. Fake images, fake voices, fake passports, fake social profiles, fake histories. A person may appear to have friends, memories, photos, habits, and a complete digital past, and still be artificial. In the past, a spy's cover identity required documents, a job, neighbors, habits, memories, and time. Today, part of a cover can begin in the digital world. But even with all this technology, the human element has not disappeared. Machines can find patterns, but humans must understand motives. Machines can process data, but humans must decide whether to believe it. Machines can listen to millions of signals, but only human beings truly understand fear, greed, honor, resentment, love, loyalty, and betrayal. The tools of future intelligence may be beyond anything Sun Tzu could imagine. But the core questions remain the same. Who knows first? Who understands correctly? Who deceives whom? And who pays the price when truth is misunderstood? Conclusion. From ancient shadows to the modern machine. When we look back across this long history, one thing becomes clear. Intelligence is not new. It has followed humanity from ancient courts, dusty battlefields, merchant roads, sealed letters, code rooms, divided cities, and silent computers, all the way to the sleepless servers of the modern world. The names have changed. The tools have changed. The battlefield has changed. But the essence remains: to know what others hide, to hide what others want to know, and to make the other side believe what benefits you. Sun Tzu called it the use of spies. Ancient rulers called them eyes and ears. Modern states call it intelligence. Today, agencies divide it into many fields: human intelligence, signals intelligence, cyber intelligence, counterintelligence, analysis, operations. But behind all the terminology, one cold truth remains. No power can survive for long in darkness unless someone protects its secrets. And no secret is completely safe if enough people are determined to find it. Now we are ready to enter the next level of shadow files. Because after we understand where intelligence began, The next question becomes even more dangerous. How does an intelligence agency truly work? Who creates an agent? Who runs an operation? Who analyzes the truth? Who hunts the traitor? Who builds the cover identity? Who opens the escape route? And who decides whether a person in the shadows is allowed to live, disappear, or be sacrificed? In the next episode, we go inside the intelligence machine. Operations, analysis, counterintelligence, technical and cyber units, logistics, training, the silent departments that rarely appear in public, but may change the destiny of nations. For today, remember this: intelligence did not begin with guns. It did not begin with codes. It did not begin with black cars moving through the night. It began the moment one human being wanted to know what another human being was trying to hide. And from that moment on, the world was never completely innocent again. This is Shadow Files. We uncover the secrets history tried to bury. And we'll see you in the next file.